All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having yourselves a fantastic start to the AM here. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all enjoying what has been a pretty nice trading week here so far and a fantastic bout of volatility in the market that we've been taking advantage of here nicely. Really looking forward to seeing, basically how we can continue to build off of this momentum that has been established for us over the last 8 trading days, or last tradable opportunities, and we've been crushing it, right? 8 green days in a row. It's been a fantastic market for us. We're finding, good momentum, good follow through, and taking advantage of essentially the opportunities that are there, right? Not every trade is going to be a home run. Not every trade is going to be right, like a max win. Not every trade needs to be a max loss. And so it's all about understanding that it is us obsessing over the quality of our decisions, right? Us obsessing over the quality of our entries, the timing of our execution, the gamifying of our risk management, basically not forcing a P&L, right? That has been making us tremendously successful here over the last little bit. And it's all about getting a bit more, right, in love with that process, right? So as much as I love the dollars and cents, as much as I love the feeling, right, of getting the reward of a P&L, it is the obsession with following the process, of trusting the system, of falling in love with my ability to execute my technique that ultimately, right, gives me the reward that I want. So there's no excuses, right? There is no tolerance for that. There is no reason to believe that if I don't do this, right, or if I do something different, or if I skip this step, right, that I'm going to get the result that I want. It is the relentless pursuit of the perfection of following my rules that ultimately it makes me successful, not this relentless pursuit of P&L. The P&L takes care of itself when my decisions are of high quality, when I am fully accountable to myself, when I hold myself to a standard that would make most people uncomfortable. If I do that and I control those variables, then the P&L takes care of itself, right? The money comes, the success that I crave shows up, right? And so it is the obsession of those details that ultimately makes me the most successful trader I can be. And that essentially compounds into every element of your life, right? If you're in a tricky situation with your spouse, it is taking accountability, or your partner, right? Taking accountability for controlling your language, right? Controlling your behaviors, being accountable to yourself and them, that fixes those problems. If you're in a tricky situation with your job, right? It is, hey, what am I not doing as well as I can do? And fixing those things, right? Being honest with yourself over what you need to fix that ultimately makes you better. It's not this hoping and praying and thinking things are going to magically change if I just keep doing things that have proven to be unsuccessful. And in trading, what is constantly proven to be unsuccessful for everyone, right, is when we ignore our risk management, when we rush our entries, when we impulse trade, when we trade without a plan, when we trade against the trend, when we ignore our system, right? When we start taking P&L off as our P&L is decreasing, when we panic close trades, all those things, right, ultimately put us in situations where we can't accomplish the objectives that we deserve. And those are all choices that we make, some conscious, right? Some consciously, some impulsively, right? Some without us even realizing it. And so it is the more accountability that we can take for those decisions, for those patterns of behavior, for those outcomes, that ultimately makes us successful as individuals, as a team, and as traders. So the challenge I would put you all under here today is to hold yourself to a standard that would make most people uncomfortable, right? How am I going to get better? What can I do to improve my performance? What would, like a great way to looking at it, right, is Charlie Munger, one of his favorite lines is, I didn't know what was guaranteed to make me happy, but I could look at the people that were consistently miserable, and if I just did the opposite of what they were doing, I knew I was going to be a lot closer to where I wanted to be. So we can ask ourselves, right, that same element or that same question in our trading. What are the parts of my process that consistently cost me money and make me miserable about my trading results? If I do the opposite of those consistent bad habits, I'm essentially going to be a lot closer towards where I want to be as an individual, as a trader, and hopefully start to feel the success, right, that I know I deserve. And so I would challenge you all to do that here with as much honesty with yourselves, right? Hold yourselves to a standard that would make most people uncomfortable, and you will quickly find that success that you are craving. So with that being said, rant out of the way, let's start mapping things out here this morning. Let's plan out our trades in an amount of detail that most traders would find uncomfortable, and let's put ourselves in a situation where we can continue to control the variables we can control and start stacking up some nice wins. So good morning, David, Nate, Rames, Suresh, Craig, Steven, Gabe, Trapper, Daniel, Fernando, John, Devin, Jeff, Joe, Brian, Jeremy, Bugs, Antonin, Cordell, Dwayne, Tanja, Samuel, Ben, and Salstein. And good morning to all of our DTR guests who have joined us here today. Feel free to say hello, ask lots of questions, and let's get you invited and started with the most successful trading room out there. So first things first, team, what's the count here on ES? Let's start there, and then let's start mapping out. Yeah, Jack, spot on, right? And it's a week 2 out of 3 with volume. Without volume, sorry. So still kind of hugging maybe that trend line a little bit. Found support underneath it, but couldn't really break out under. We talked about that 58.50 area there, right, as kind of being our catalyst for a call it trend line breakdown, right? Whatever you want to call it. And we haven't really seen any sustained follow through that area on any really impressive volume standard. So not too much is really going to be changing here this morning, right? Although we made a lower low and a lower high, we're still very much kind of consolidating inside that 14th range. So we'd like to see a bounce off of that 58.50, right? Essentially underneath this trend line in 58.50 for a move back up towards like 58.90, we'll call it. And then 5,900, cool. And then from there, right, we have it mapped out 100 points. And then to the downside here, we need to see a breakdown, right, with some conviction through and past that 58.50 area. And then basically a rejection maybe off of like 5,900 instead of the trend line here today. And then, yeah, levels look fine. All right. NQ, what's the count? And then just economic calendar here. We got existing home sales. We got beige book at 2, so that's going to be fine. Not really in the way. And then we've got Michelle Bowman yapping away here in the background already this morning. Yeah, Jack, spot on, right? And it's borderline outlier volume. So again, right, if we're going to say which name is stronger here to the upside, is it NQ or ES? We're probably going to say NQ, right? Consecutive higher highs, consecutive higher lows, holding that trend line, good volume. Bulls finished in control there yesterday. So we certainly seem like we've got a relatively good path here. So a bounce off that trend line. Good morning, Howell. Right, a bounce off that trend line on some volume should push us back up towards that 5,600 area. I don't see too much changing there. And then a breakdown, right, under that 2360, again, could set us up. Now, for a rejection, we're going to be looking for a rejection off of maybe like 2590. Right, so approximately that trend line. And we'll see if this thing wants to break down. And then, 2,300, fine. Not too much is changing. Make sense? Good morning, Howell. Yeah, clear? Good morning, Constantine. All right, sweet. What's the count here on crude? Well, trend line breakout, post inside bar. Yeah, 2 out of 3 with volume, spot on, Jack. Killing it. Call it a trend line breakout, right? So we're looking for a move towards 72 this morning. So if we find support, right, off of like 70 bucks and then breakout, that certainly would be that fake out scenario that we're looking for, right? Or breakout towards, right, 72, 72.50, yada, yada, yada. What would be the setup here to the downside? Do we have a setup to the downside this morning on crude? Yeah, we think we've got trending price action here to the upside. So I'm not going to look to counter trade trend this here today. So we're going to say NA, right, for a bear case. All right. Apple. Green candle, green increasing volume, right, and then a gap down. Again, trend line support here potentially. Not like outlier volume, so we could definitely still invalidate this. But we're looking for a breakout, either trend line bounce, right, like we've seen happen, last couple times, right, we've tested that trend line, or a breakout over 237.50. And then to the downside here, although it's probably not in play this morning, a breakdown under 232, basically trend line breakdown under 232 sets us up, right, for some enthusiasm. All right. Tesla, what happens today after market close? Yeah, earnings, right? So we've been in consolidation mode here, earnings-wise. So I'm not necessarily trading this going into it. Maybe tomorrow, right, we could have an opportunity. Tesla loves a cycle move post-earnings. So maybe this could give us a little bit of a pop. Last I looked, it was giving us an implied move of about 10% here today, or today after market close. So realistically, it's probably going to be just the premium sellers that win. But we'll see if this ends up giving us anything interesting. So we're going to say NA here going into earnings. And with it being such a big name here, and we're expecting, right, for it to be volatile post-market open, what does that maybe do for our tech-heavy indexes? So if we're expecting Tesla to not really give us a trend day going into earnings here post-close, because I'm just going to be waiting for that, right, where today's probably going to be more of a positioning trade than a trend-creating trade, what kind of pressure does that maybe place on the indexes? Well, it'd be volatile tomorrow, likely, right, Suresh? But if Tesla is going to be relatively stuck here going into earnings, and maybe that's what the market is waiting for, then today might be a little bit of a calmer day, right? The calm before the storm type thing. So let's make sure, right, that this is actually enthusiastic, or we're seeing a consistent narrative, right, on our leading names before we're aggressive from an index level. All right, Microsoft. 3 out of 3 here to the upside. Clean trend line breakout. And so we're looking for a 431 breakout this morning. Or, right, maybe dip buy off of like 425. And then NA, right, to the downside. Okay, Amazon. Doji-ish, right? Green candle, increasing volume. Gap down, so call it a weaker. So we'd like to see a breakout over 191.50 now. And then alternatively, right, a dip buy off of that range, or off of that trend line, sorry. And then to the downside, same thing like we talked about maybe on Apple, right? If it breaks down through that trend line, good morning, Kenneth. It could certainly be in play here this morning, right, for some downside continuation. Can't find Amazon all of a sudden. But that might be maybe is a little bit challenging for that to happen. So a breakdown under like 186 for sure could be in play. But I would say lower probability here this morning. Good morning, Sammy. All right, AMD. Red candle held under that green candle's low, right? Closed just under it. So it is still a technical 3 out of 3 here to the downside. So NA, right, for a bull case here. And we're looking for trend line continuation. Under 152. All right. NVIDIA. Higher high, higher low, decreasing volume, gap down. Green candle, so it's a 1 out of 3. So you're looking for a breakout over 144.50. Right? Or ultimately, like maybe a rejection. I don't know if I see really a clean trend line here. I'm going to say NA. I'm not sure if I see any really bearish scenario here that I'd be willing to trade into. Like, I don't really want to sell into this big bullish volume on Monday. That for me would be too aggressive. All right, Meta. Maybe something like that, right? Kind of reminds me then a bit of Microsoft to a certain extent. So green candle, increasing non-outlier volume, gap up, possible trend line breakout. say non-outlier vol, right? So we are looking for continuation, say over 585. And then to the downside here would have to be a pretty aggressive rejection. Yeah, mega vol rejection at like, yeah, 585. All right, Netflix, inside bar here. Good morning, Ruben. So we're looking for a resolution of that. Still not really interested in selling into that Friday range. So I'm looking for maybe a dip buy off of 750. Or a breakout over 774. And that's all-time highs, right? So let's see if it can give me that oomph. Okay, Google, 1 out of 3 here. Bounced off the trend line again. But kind of just looks, right, if we're going to draw this out, we kind of look like we're in the middle of consolidation, which makes sense with a 1 out of 3, right? 1 out of 3 tells us weak trending or non-trending PA. And we've established, right, a little bit of a wedge pattern here. And so we're anticipating markets to remain maybe a little bit choppy until we break out or separate away from this range. So for now, a 167 breakout would have to be the start. Yeah, we'll go over that here in a second. Again, if you want to see what my plan is when I've already gone over it, you can access my copied charts, right? And just click that link. It'll have my updated notes. And then we're looking, yeah, 167 or trend line bounce. And then for a breakdown here under 162.50. Okay. And then VIX, 18.74. So what is that telling us? Probably telling us that to a certain extent, we're seeing that like fear maybe fade away a little bit from the markets. So if it continues to decrease here, right, and we get under sub 18, probably a slightly easier scenario for bulls versus bears. If we see this thing continue to climb like it's climbing here pre-market, then maybe we have that opportunity for some bearish continuation. But again, a slightly divergent tape here this morning. Some different stories across the board. Maybe that's telling us the market is waiting for something. That obvious something here this afternoon is going to be Tesla earnings. We want to make sure that we're not getting caught basically in the backwash of that catalyst. And we're just a little bit patient, right, until that happens. So ES, right, we're looking for either a high volume trend line bounce for a move towards the upper end of this range, or, right, we're looking for a trend line breakdown here through 58.50. And then NQ, right, we're looking for either a trend line bounce here again, like we've seen last couple days, right, or a breakout away from this upper range and some continuation. NQ, probably a little bit stronger here to the upside than ES, whereas ES, right, probably a little bit stronger here to the downside. So if we get a, you know, very convincing breakdown across the board, right, in all of our leading names, then ES is probably going to be the one that we want to focus on here more. If we see dip buyers and relative momentum here to the upside, then NQ probably going to be the priority. And then CL here, right, kind of the independent catalyst, right, if we want to call it that, where we're looking for a high vol breakout towards that $72 range. And then just double check here. We got crude oil inventories here today at 10:30. So just want to be very aware of that, right? And not have any open positions before. And maybe that creates then for us, right, that opportunity to take advantage of some price action. Any questions here, team? Sounds good. All right, so we got about Minute here till market opens. I'm just gonna go make myself a quick cup of coffee, spend a minute here visualizing a successful trading day. Yeah, well, we're looking for a variation of this setup here on the lower time frame CB. So we'll break that down, right, as setups are trying to come together, and we'll talk about it as it's starting to become appropriate. So I'll be back in a minute here, team, and then we'll see if we can crush the market. All right, team. So let's have ourselves a successful trading day here. Let's see how things want to shape up, right? And where enthusiasm kind of comes together here this morning. Pretty good volume to start the session off, right? Pretty good volume. Bigger than what we saw yesterday, right? Which is definitely enthusiastic. So let's see, right? Sorry, what are you asking? What list of what, Joe? Which list, Joe? Joe, I'm happy to point you in the right direction, but I need some more color, please. Which list? You're asking for the watch list? Are you asking for the plans of the tickers I trade? What are you asking for? I don't know. Well, I'm looking at the first time frame that gives me a version of this setup, right? So that might happen on the 3-min, that might happen on the 5-min, that might happen on the 10-min. So we're looking, right, for what's the first time frame that gives me either the bullish plan here, right? So the fake out and breakout up towards, right? Or which one gives me the bearish plan, right, where I can look to have some opportunity. So it's just whatever time frame gives me that first opportunity and first confirmation. Again, right now we're not really in any there's no active setup triggers here right now, so we're still just watching. Joe, you with us? Happy to try to answer your question, but I need some more color, please. Which one, Joe? Which one? Do you want the watch list? Are you asking for the copy of my charts? What are you asking for? Okay, so this is Market Watch economic calendar. This link here. Okay, so far so slow, right? Not seeing a ton of movement from the indexes. That has been the general theme here for the last little bit, right? Where it's slightly slower start to the day, and then things kind of perk up a little bit. So being pretty cautious here, pretty patient. No reason to jump into any opportunities here yet. Remember, we started off the day talking about how it's about the quality of our decisions, not about equating our time as like an hourly wage here this morning, right? That ultimately makes us profitable. So hopefully, right, we can see something going to set up for us here, give us an A+ version of what our triggers are. And then we can kind of set ourselves up for what should hopefully be a successful trading day. But we're not going to rush into something just because we got to feel like, oh, I got to justify the 90 minutes here I'm watching the market. It's not really how it works, right? It's got to be absolutely perfect here this morning. We don't want to do anything here, right, that crushes our 8-day winning streak. So really all about focusing, okay, what can I do well? What can I improve? And then hopefully go from there. So far, so nasty, right? Even on the 1 min time frame, we're looking like some pretty gross markets. So for now, right, maybe we got to be just a little bit patient, wait for that 10 a.m. data to drop, right? Home sales, that's an okay one. So maybe a little bit more of a bearish open, right, than a bullish open if we're looking at things objectively here so far. But for now, very, very slow open here on our indexes. Any questions here, team? Hey, SG, how you doing? So yeah, we're very much still confined inside that first candle's range. Slow start here this morning. Again, NQ, we can't play this as a dip buy because there's no fake out right under the opening range here yet. So we're very much just hanging out still. So at this point, right, needs to see a breakout up and over. Crude maybe starting to get a breakout here higher, which would be interesting. 10:30 data, so we have a little bit of a ways to go before that. All right, so we're going to start watching crude here. So for now, we could possibly play that pullback technique. So we'd be risking 11 cents. How much risk would that be per contract? Yeah, 110 exactly, right? So how many contracts would you be buying? Yeah, you could buy 4, maybe 3. Right? But you're not buying 10, right? So we saw an elevator down into 71.21, not tick by tick pullback. So no reason to jump into this here yet. If this thing then breaks out over that candle's high, we can reset, right, and look for another entry opportunity. Again, no reason to rush, right? When we rush our process, then all we do is we put ourselves in a position where we're rushing to lose money. Okay, so we haven't made a higher high here yet, right? So let's watch this pullback carefully. We want to see it go tick by tick, right? We want to see slow bears, fast bulls. Slow bears, fast bulls, right? And an entry at 25, for example, we do not have the risk-reward ratio to then justify that breakout towards 71.50. So we have to wait for that pullback under that 71.21. And we need to make sure that that reaction is exactly what we're looking for. No compromises allowed. If we miss a trade that moves without following our rules, we cannot hold that against ourselves, right? We have to get over that basically ego of feeling as if we can trade things that move without following our rules, right? That is a FOMO-based ego decision, not a decision that's based on any factual evidence, right? So we're really good at tricking ourselves into thinking that, hey, this time will be different, when in reality, it's not, right? We're not solving for a trade-to-trade P&L. We're solving for a month-to-month, right? A year-to-year, a quarter-to-quarter improvement on our process. And so when we skip those steps, right, when we reward those impulsive decisions, all we do is lose. Okay, how do we feel about this volume now? What's this telling us? So if this was our strong breakout bullish signal, and now we're seeing more selling pressure than our bullish setup, is that really high conviction of us getting nice follow through? Probably not, right? So we'd like to see if this candle could close as a green one. It did not. So we reset. No setup here. Again, right? We're strict, we're disciplined, right? We're rigid with our structure, and we're unwilling to take compromises. Again, indexes are not moving. We're not seeing any follow through here. And I don't care right now if this touches 71.17, right? it's irrelevant to me because my setup thesis or the idea that I had here simply no longer valid after seeing that increasing bearish pressure. Yeah, to a certain extent, I would agree with that, right? But if it's increasing volume and we can't make higher highs or can't break out of that range, then that tells me, right, that we're probably dealing with chop, right? So at best, that's high volume indecision, which again is not what you want to see post setup trigger, right? You want to see strong move in your direction, not basically like a high volume tug of war. So yeah, I would agree, right? Generally you want to see a high vol fake out, but we invalidate price action in two ways, either by making lower lows, right? Or by invalidating the volume standard. In this context, right, we invalidated the volume standard. So if we also now know that we've got crude oil inventories here at 1030, and then we're seeing, you know, big selling pressure load up here, give or take at the high a day. Less optimistic, right? Less optimistic that my thesis is correct. So our target on CL would be 71.50, but there's no setup here now, right? So no reason to look to trade this in the short term. Maybe we can get an opportunity here on the indexes if they can break out of this opening 30-minute range. But it's been a very choppy and slow start here to the AM with very limited reasons to be aggressive. So again, I don't care if this thing pulls back under 71.21 now. I have zero interest, right, in trading this anymore. No, I will always tell you when I enter a trade. I have not jumped into this position. No entry. And like I said, I do not care, right, if this thing pulls back and hits my spot. It has not followed my rules, so there is zero interest in trading this. Right? It's got to behave how I expect, or I have no reason to think I'm going to get paid out. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So far, right, it's a good day to sit on hands and preserve that mental capital. We'll see if we can get a breakout from this range or maybe a slightly later move in the morning. So like, okay, now we're starting to get breakdowns here, right? Maybe if these happen on volume, that could start to get interesting. Again, do not care, right, that CL is moving. No FOMO, right? Okay, didn't hold under the opening range, right? So no setup trigger. So we'll switch to this on the 5-minute, see if we can close under. So NQ, maybe we can start to play this here to the downside. It's bigger volume than what we had yesterday, right, with that volume increase. So that could potentially be in play. Probably like to see it hold under 2,400. And that seems to be corresponding, right, with Tesla breaking down, AMD breaking down, NVIDIA breaking down. So relatively consistent narrative here. Okay, ES as well, right? Breaking down here lower. So we've got two setups, right, that could be in play. Yeah. So, and that, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Microsoft was the 3 for 3 yesterday, but it also doesn't look like it's giving us that much. It's not like flying like it was yesterday. You might be using the pre-market data. Your session might be set to electronic versus regular. I set my session to be regular. Okay, so my bias, right, I talked about this pre-market, would play NQ. Sorry, ES to the downside, NQ here to the upside. So ES giving me probably the better setup here lower. So I'm going to focus on this. Right? And ES is the priority because it better matches the pre-market conditions, right? So we had weak trending price action to the downside there yesterday, and we're getting better follow through of that scenario. So I'd rather look for trend continuation than trend creation. So let's start watching this. Stop loss would have to be 68. And an entry, see a tick by tick pullback here. Entry above the 64.25. Again, still not looking to pull the trigger here yet, but could be reasonable. This would be right? 2 contracts, realistically. Nice, Rusty. Good luck. All right, so that's your elevator down. Let's see if we can see a weak pullback here into 64.25 or above. And again, like I said, be a 2 contract play. Again, if this thing, we don't get a look here on the 5-min, then we can reset here and play this on the 10. The target here is this white line, right? So it's all mapped out there for you already. 58.50. You could also see it here on my graphic, right? First level, 58.50. White line here, 58.50. So all the information you need is shared on my chart here already. Please make sure you're paying attention. Nope, I will always tell you guys when I jump in. It will not be a surprise when I'm in a trade, right? I will always tell you when I'm in a position. My job here isn't to give you guys FOMO and tell you that I'm in 4 points after it happened. It's to break down exactly what my thought process is, how I'm behaving, how I'm reacting to price action, so you have all the information you need to also make that decision for yourself. We are unlike other streaming services that only create FOMO. We're here to make sure that everyone can win as a team. So I will tell you exactly what I'm doing, when I am doing it, and why I am doing it. There will never be any surprises over what trades I'm in. So still no reason to look to enter in yet. Right, that's a relatively decent sized pullback here on what could ultimately now start to look, right, like reversal volume. So a bit of deja vu, right, to what crude gave us. Same thing on ES and NQ. Again, if I miss a $4 move, I do not care. Right? Not missed out on anything here yet. So not a strong enough candle for me to want to look for continuation here lower, right? Saw basically a failed breakdown here so far. Without any reason to be aggressive on the shorter time frames. On the 10-min, doesn't look great, right? Heavy dipped buyers off of 860. On NQ, maybe a little bit better, but still a very bottom heavy wick. Right? Where now it's going to be very challenging to get the risk reward that we're looking to justify, right? So we pass on the burden of confirmation and we look for another setup trigger. Again, stop trying to trade for P&L. Right? Start trying to think about your process and how you can improve and control those variables. I have not objectively missed out on anything here, right? At best, we're at my entry price, what my entry price would have been. So this idea of chasing suboptimal trades is a very expensive way to make a living. Everyone understand? Oh, same here, Derek. Yeah. Every time I've tried to optimize for a P&L decision versus a process decision, it might work once, it might work twice, but then that third time it happens, I'm a train wreck, right? I get crushed by the market. I lose all my mental capital. It's just a disaster. So again, have not missed out on anything here yet. Same thing with CL. Have not missed out on anything. Maybe you would have made 15 cents. Awesome, right? Life-changing. So remember, right? We have to obsess over the quality of our decisions, not about optimizing for a P&L. Trying to optimize for P&L is why 99% of traders fail. And if you want to be in the top 1% of anything, you can't behave like 99% of people. So if you're trading to try to make day by day huge P&L gains or whatever it might be, that becomes an emotional roller coaster that is just not sustainable. Right? You end up getting crushed. And if the trade is strong, right, it'll give me more than one chance to enter. If the trade is weak, it's going to try to suck me in, right, and make me feel as if, oh, I need to rush this decision, right? So I have to hold myself to a higher standard than that. That was like the first thing we talked about here this morning. And not allow the market to dictate how I feel on a day-to-day basis. And that's fundamentally a choice. And there is a right decision and there is a wrong decision there objectively. And right now, chasing this trade, okay, maybe would have netted you a couple $100, but then would have stopped you out, would have maybe at your entry price or worse, and you're not feeling great about your decision, right? Your mental capital is feeling a little bit beat up, right? So we focus on controlling the variables we can control. And that means ultimately, right, that we're fighting back against what our bias is on a day-to-day basis. And our bias when we're trying to make money is not about protecting ourselves. It's about trying to take on as much risk as you possibly can so that you make that P&L target, right? But when you start to make decisions that sort of neglect that risk management element, there is no success. There is no profit long term. Nice work, Jeremy. Congratulations. Nice work, Rusty. And again, just zoom out. Look at the big picture. Markets did the majority of its move here so far today in the pre-market. We have not seen a tremendous amount of follow through here yet. Right? Total range of 117 points here to start the session off. That's like 0.5% of range. Don't overestimate, right, how violent that move actually was. Understood? There is a little part of me that thinks this could be the play here. Capitulation volume, right? Bullish engulfing candle. So there's like your bearish failure, right? Here's your bullish confirmation. The only thing I don't like, right, is that it kind of got stuck right at 400. Again, with crude oil inventories coming up in 10 minutes, that could be a little bit of a catalyst here for some more volatility as well. Again, not a tremendous amount to follow through here yet anywhere. So don't overestimate your ability to make money by breaking rules. Again, couldn't close under previous low of day, not outlier volume, so I can't look for that continuation towards 850. This is your possible fake out scenario here. I'm not sure what that comment means, CB. I don't know what you're asking. Right now, there isn't really a setup here. So just be patient, man. Be patient. No. All those Fibonacci's are is a risk-reward visualization, right? So if I map out something along these lines, it just means that anywhere between this green line and this red line, I'm getting approximately 4-to-1 risk-reward towards that upper element. Risk-reward is one element of being able to have a tradable opportunity, but it is not the only element of having a tradable opportunity. And you don't want to be trading it when it breaks out above, right? You want to be trading it when it pulls into your risk reward zone. So right now we have no setup. So there is no reason to be thinking about entering a trade here yet. Again, big breakdown on the data right at 10 a.m. and then it hasn't really moved since. Sounds good, Antonin. Enjoy, man. So again, don't overestimate your ability to have made money here so far. So we'll get another setup trigger here potentially, right? If we can break down and hold low of day on increasing outlier volume. We haven't seen that happen here, right? Since that initial breakdown, right? Each pullback has not held below the previous low. Same thing with NQ, right? And then we've got 3 minutes here now till the crude oil inventories drops. So that could be a little bit of an algo catalyst as well for us. So no reason to rush into this. And again, if I do not get a trade here today, there is no bitterness. There is no like, oh my gosh, Michael, what could have been? You could have been a millionaire, whatever, right? There's none of these like reoccurring thoughts inside my head. Right? It's okay. Nothing has so far behaved that has followed my rules the way that I expect. So I'm not going to torture myself because price action didn't behave based on my strict guidelines. I cannot hold it against myself that I have been disciplined to follow my rules, right? That is very counterintuitive and a very obvious and easy way to get addicted to losing money. Is that clear to everyone? Right? So if we want to think about how we can improve our psychology, how we can improve our trading mindset, we have to really evaluate which collection of thoughts that we have, right, when we're looking at markets are actually objectively putting us in situations that make us money long term, right? Falling in love with chasing price action because it feels like it's moving fast isn't actually a way of making you any money. Okay, so now we're possibly getting a reversal scenario here again, right? We're back up above 2414, back up above 2400. Look at the size of this ES reversal, right? So don't fall in love with price action because you just want to make money. Fall in love with your process and get addicted to being stubborn, right? Stubborn in following your rules, stubborn in behaving the way that you say you're going to behave, stubborn in trusting yourself, and realize that 99% of price action, right, is not going to follow your rules. So stop expecting yourself, right, to be able to dominate that price action when you have no evidence to suggest that you can. All right, so increasing outlier volume held above 400. We have a reversal scenario here on NQ. So now we want to see elevator up, right, and then a step-by-step pullback with the stop loss at like 406.75. Be approximately a 20-point stop loss, right? So that'd be one contract. And just be patient. Do not rush this. Right? We've seen a little bit of a move higher, but then a relatively quick move back to the downside here. So it looks a little bit like a tug of war versus a clear indication that one side or the other side is in control. So buy yourself time to make this decision. We want to see bulls move higher faster than bears moving lower. Right now, we're seeing that bearish move happen faster lower. So we want to make sure, right, that that tug of war is ending before we jump in. Being correct on your entry timing is just as important as being correct with your thesis. See how we're going like point by point higher, right? It's like it's fighting up against molasses, right? So we want to see that move happen quickly. So far better. A little bit better. Now let's see if this thing can go slowly back, right? Okay, so starting to watch here. All right, I am in 422.50. 422.50 one contract. So let's see. It was a good initial pop, and then I don't know if I like the size of that pullback, so let's see if this thing can really keep pushing here. Ideally, we'd like to see this candle close with an increasing volume standard as well. And then if it does, we'll feel like we're in much better shape. But so far, so good here. So far, so good. And see how when we entered that trade, we were pretty much green right away? That is a good sign, right? That's exactly what you want to occur when you enter a position. Spent 5 seconds in drawdown. So that for me, right, is a good indication that I got my thesis correct. So now let's see if this thing can keep giving me some further follow through. Breakout maybe above that 39 area. And we can keep running it higher. So there's 300 bucks. Let's see if it's got the legs here. Okay, that's 400. All right, see how good it feels to have waited and been patient and been specific, right? There's no impulses here. There was no chasing. There was none of that kind of stuff, right? Well, we already talked about the risk-reward ratio with the Fibonacci's, right? Anywhere inside or under that green line, right? You're getting approximately 4 to 1 at an entry price of 422.50, right? I'm risking about 16 points to make 150. So by buying a deeper pullback, I'm essentially getting 10 to 1 risk-reward, or approximately 10 to 1. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to get that follow-through here. But I have a tremendous amount of basically margin for error. Nice entry, Rame. Great entry. So again, now watching this price action closely here. Don't want to see this thing pull back too much. The one thing that maybe wasn't perfect post-entry, right? We talked, we want to see this candle go increasing on volume. It barely did. So not like a tremendous amount of extra enthusiasm. So I have my finger on the X button, right? And not going to allow this thing to go green to red on me. Is that understood? Okay, so I'm out. Fill price of 24. And I will look to potentially re-enter here on a different time frame if this stops pulling back this aggressively. So again, right, I do not care that it is now at 34 or 35 or whatever it is. If the trade is strong, it'll give me multiple opportunities to enter. So if it then breaks out, right, above this area of resistance and we get that elevator up, stairs down, I will be able to get the risk reward ratio for a stop loss at 420. Right? But I'm not going to get emotionally attached to a position because I put my self-worth to be my P&L. Right? I will take a $15 win. I do not care. So if the trade is strong, right, it'll give me multiple opportunities to enter. If it is weak, it'll make it challenging, right? Okay, look at crude dump on inventories. Again, the tighter risk reward we can get, the better, right? Because I can go bigger position size and I can do all sorts of fun stuff. So again, right? First initial stab at it wasn't perfect. Doesn't mean my thesis is bad. It just means that maybe my timing wasn't perfect. So instead of making that personal and hoping I get lucky, close, reset, recharge that mental capital, and set yourself up for another opportunity. So maybe we could do stop loss 427.75, but it has to break out, right? We've been stuck so far at this area, right? So we need to see a high vol breakout or an aggressive speedy breakout above that red line, and then a slow pullback into that zone. If I do not get that reaction, I am not interested. And again, best case scenario, I would have made a couple $100 here. Holding out to get lucky for a couple $100. It's not worth my mental capital. So we continue to be patient. So again, right, needs to break out over 42.25. and then a low, slow, calm, cool, collected pullback into that area before it's interesting. A lack of enthusiasm post entry generally tells me that my timing wasn't perfect. Now, we were good for a sec, but it didn't sustain, right? So instead of hoping I get lucky, I would rather reset and try again if it comes together, right? Become objective over how I'm looking at the market. Once I am in a position, it is very challenging to be objective. So I buy myself the opportunity, right? I paid myself $15 to be able to have a chance to look at this price action with a clear lens again. Understood? So now, right, we can start to set things up here again, right? So if this thing does move, we're not flailing, right, trying to catch up. So as is, right, stop loss would be probably realistically 423.75. And we still haven't seen that breakout over 442, right? So don't click submit here yet. But one contract, right, we'd be risking about $365 approximately. So this would be a one contract play, right? If I get two contracts, well, all of a sudden I'm risking close to $700, and that's much more, right, than my max loss. That's 40% more than I'm willing to take as my max loss. So no desire to do that. I will not allow my greed to cost me money. And if this takes multiple candles, cool, no worries, right? Because then maybe we can get a tighter risk reward setup, so tighter total amount of risk, larger risk reward, and then potentially, right, a larger position size as well. So if this thing takes its time, no skin off my back. And just think objectively over how would you be feeling right now on each little pullback lower here, right? You wouldn't be feeling super optimistic about your thesis. You'd be feeling stressed out, anxious, right? Maybe a little bit worried. And instead, right, of feeling those emotions or feeling that extra stress, we have a chance to reset. Now with the stop loss of potentially 34. Right, which means I could buy more contracts, right? So now I could buy potentially two contracts here on a little pullback and be within my max loss number. Okay, so there we go. Back in at 444.50 with two contracts this time. And let's see if this thing can go. We'd like to see it break out with some enthusiasm through that 50, and then we can look to protect. Okay, so watch this attempt through 50, right? This is going to be important for us. We want to see it fly through. There we go. So now let's see it really push and see if that 50 can act as support for that next leg of continuation. Right, so now, right, that we've broken through that quote-unquote psychological level, we want to make sure that this candle closes above that 50 handle. Right, if we get a little fake out rejection at that area, that again becomes a reason to close our position. So finger on the trigger here still. It's a pretty quick 10-point pullback. So let's see if it's got the juice here. Come on. All right, and that's $400, pushing 500. So again, right, we have not missed out on anything because we chose to be more disciplined, right? Process gets rewarded. Chasing P&L gets punished. So again, that's the second failed breakout through 50. Come on, you can do it. Come on. Okay, so I am out, right? I am out. It did not close above 50, right? So I took my little win there at 447. And again, we reset, recharge, and take another opportunity. So all we're doing here is being very specific over what we want to see happen, right? Because when we're specific, then the reaction is binary. Either that happens or it doesn't. When it doesn't behave exactly how we expect, then we're kind of admitting to ourselves, right, that we now need to get lucky to be profitable. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe that I'm going to create the future I want for myself with being lucky, right? I'd rather go play the slots, right? Play the roulette table, play some blackjack, right? And hope I get bailed out. And if I have to stack up small wins, no worries, right? Not the end of the world. So I'm up $117 here on the session. Nice work, Kenneth. Nice work, Brian. Right? Okay, and now we would have been stopped out, right? Hoping we get lucky. Not worth it, right? So, was ultimately a good decision, right? Was ultimately a very good decision. So again, right? If price action doesn't behave exactly how we expect, close it, move on, right? Recharge your mental capital. And be patient, right? Look at how ES is behaving here now. Maybe we have a setup to the downside, right? Failed breakout, right? Little reversal, big stuff here at the upper end of the opening range. Now a nice volume breakdown. So we're still very much in play here for having an opportunity for tradable price action. And Q behaving that way as well. All right, so we do have some joy here or some opportunities. So again, don't make your price action personal by getting like pot committed, right, to your P&L. It is the quality of my process that allows me to win. It is obsessing over the number on a screen that tricks me into losing. So I know what I would rather do and how I would rather feel as a trader. So it ultimately becomes a very easy decision, right? Okay, so potentially ES here now to the downside. We've made two very good decisions here so far today. So we don't need to do anything stupid, right? Good candle, good volume profile, largest volume profile since that 10 a.m. data. So we're in good shape here. That 64.50 would be our stop loss. So set it up. Don't rush it. Set your stop loss first. Okay, entry price would be anywhere here yet. Still gonna wait, right? Still gonna buy myself time. Not gonna rush this like a fool. All right, so again, no entry here yet. Let's see how this thing continues to pull back. The deeper it pulls back, right, the less likely it's going to be for us to be able to get that elevator down. Okay, so now stop losses have to be 65.75. Okay, so that would be a 3 contract position here. Okay, we're looking for a tick by tick pullback above 862.50. All right, guys, I am in 862.50, 3 contracts. So let's see if it's got the legs here. $57. So early in this position, right? Not been green right away. So let's see if this thing can now start to break down here quickly. Otherwise, I will cut it. I mean, NQ under 400. So I do feel like we should get some oomph here. But let's see. I'm stuck at that 75 a couple times now. Come on, make a lower low here and flush. Come on. Okay, let's see if we can hold these lower lows now. Nope. It's not a great feeling. Okay, break down, break down, break down, break down. Let's NQ at 92. Very paranoid of the fake out here. Come on, flush through 60. Come on. All right, guys. I'm out at this one, 861. I don't like that it keeps bouncing. And that was for a, what was that, $187.50 win. This is a fight today. Fight, fight, fight. So again, right, same thing like that NQ trade. If this thing then can break down under that 60 handle on some volume, we can reset and retry. But it keeps bouncing, right, and then retesting, give or take my entry. And I'm not really down for that here today, right? And then I also think back to what talking about earlier. My strongest trades, I'm green right away. Spent approximately 5 minutes, right, of this thing trying to get separation away. So that tells me either my entry timing wasn't perfect, right? My thesis wasn't perfect, or my setup trigger wasn't perfect. Or it could be that all three, right, are giving me that same scenario. So instead of getting emotionally attached to that, right, I would rather reset, recharge, and look to try again, right, if this thing sets up. So, okay, not a monster day here by any means. But we're stacking them up, right? Okay, and NQ now back up above 400. ES, you know, testing that original entry price. So, again, I don't feel like I've done anything wrong here. I've taken good risk-reward shots, but I've not gotten follow-through on them. And so I'm not going to expect myself to get lucky here. I'm going to take my little wins and live life, right? Instead of getting emotionally attached. Yeah, I feel good about these decisions. Again, I would not feel great about myself now seeing price back up above my entry, right? So instead of allowing myself to potentially get stopped out, I'll take a $300 day, right? And live to fight another session. This has been a choppy market here. And so I'm not going to get obsessive, right, over that P&L when I'm not being rewarded, right, for follow through. Nice work, CB. Okay, 3 for 3 here on the day. No complaints, right? Going to be my 9th green day here in a row. And today has been an excellent process day, not an excellent P&L day. That's fine, right? I'm fine with that because I did things that were protecting my account. I did things that were protecting my mental capital. And objectively, when I'm looking at price action here now, I made the right decision, right? 1 second here, guys. I got someone at my door. All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. Just had a book arrive. So all things considered here, right? Been a very good process day. I don't think I've done anything that suggests that I should have made, maybe, you know, if I closed every position in my max P&L, okay, probably sitting at like 600, 700 bucks. But all in all, right, a pretty good day. I don't think I've done anything crazy wrong. And I don't think the market has rewarded really many positions here today, right? So for myself, I don't see any reasons to do anything silly, right? Keep getting stuck. So I'm not going to do anything else here this morning. Pretty happy just to be green. Any questions here, team? One sec, JD, did you answer that question? Let me fill in my journal here first. Nice work, Joe. So I try to read a lot of trading books, J to the D. I'm not sure if I necessarily watch a ton of Netflix documentaries about traders. But doing okay. The book that just arrived was Leo Meladine on the Markets, who is like a very old school futures trader. So curious to see what this read is like. But yeah, I mean, I just try to read a lot, listen to a lot of audiobooks too, especially when I'm running or like walking the dog or something along those lines. I think I've said in the past, but usually like my Saturdays, I commit to, of course now things break down, but usually my Saturdays, I commit to like personal development days, if you want to call it that. So what that means from my perspective, right, is just listening to an audiobook or reading something or doing something along those lines. And yeah, really breaking, like basically paying for the ideas, right? So, okay, a little bit unlucky here. That would have been stopped out or close to stopped out before this thing broke down. So thesis was correct, but entry timing was wrong, right? So that's fine. I'm not going to complain about that. I just didn't make it personal. Not the end of the world. And yeah, Joe, once you start stacking up those accounts too, so once you have more than 1 or 2 trading accounts, right, then that $300 turns into $1,000, turns into $1,500, right, turns into $2,000 very, very quickly. Nice work, Kenneth. Congratulations. So all in all, team, I'm not going to complain about today's trading session. And it was a fight today. Today was an absolute fight of a day. So 304.86 on the day per account. Ninth green day in a row. And today had to work for a living. So it is what it is. Will not complain. And yeah, didn't allow greed, anger, fear, right, FOMO to drive my decision-making processes here today. I think I can objectively look at every single one of my trading decisions. It was a very strong session. I don't ever really think about things like that, J to the D, to be honest with you, right? The bigger buffer you can build yourself, even if you can't take out that entire cash, the better. All right, any questions here, team? Any questions? Again, you don't trade your P&L, right? You trade your process. So if your process leads to a big P&L, awesome. If it leads to a choppy, challenging day like we've had here today, then awesome, right? All I care about is my ability to follow my rules. Because when I follow my rules, everything kind of just falls into place. So 9 green days in a row. Won't ever complain about that. It's been a nice little run here, last little bit. And hopefully, right, the market can give us a little bit of some further follow through here going forward. But sitting at 586 here on the year, can't really complain. And a 64% win rate. So that's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Plenty of margin for error, right, with our risk-reward requirements. Any questions, team? Yeah, no worries, John. Have yourself a great day, man. Again, zero FOMO about this now being at 58.48, right? Does not matter. If my entry timing isn't correct, what else am I wrong about, right? And on this last trade, entry timing was not correct, right? Would have gotten within a tick of my stop loss. I would not have felt good about that. All right, guys, any questions here? Any questions? All right, team, final call for questions here. Final call for questions. All right, team. Well, same deal like always then. If you have any questions, hit me up outside of market hours, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Been a great week here so far, so let's keep stacking them up, right? Those base hits turn into home runs, but not if we ignore our risk management. So good day here, good process session here in the last couple, and we'll see if we can get some nice follow through here tomorrow and Friday. But in the meantime, have yourselves all a great trading day, strong afternoon, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning for what should hopefully be a strong, strong day. For those of you who are DTR guests, thank you very much for tuning in and watching. Please reach out to your DTR rep for information on how to kind of trade with us full time. What I try to do with each of my trading decisions is kind of break down exactly why I'm feeling that, how I'm feeling something, when it's time to enter, when it's time to exit, kind of like you saw here today. So today, a lot of basically focus on capital preservation. We didn't get that mega follow through that we were kind of craving and hoping for, but hopefully we do see some of that price action, right, return later in the week. So green here, last 9 days in a row, will not complain about that. That for me is fantastic. So almost 2 weeks here of green trades. And yeah, we'll see if we can keep kind of building up on this momentum and hopefully crush price actions. Have yourselves a great day, team. We'll see you all tomorrow. And yeah, chat then. Peace.